Picture this. You're at your granddaughter's birthday party. Everyone is laughing, the room is full of chatter, and she leans in close to tell you something important, something she's been excited to share with you all week. And you smile and nod, because you didn't catch a single word. You didn't want her to see the flicker of worry cross your face. You didn't want anyone to know that lately, noisy rooms feel less like celebrations and more like standing outside a glass wall, watching everyone else laugh at a joke you didn't hear. If this feels familiar, I want you to know something right now, before we go any further. You are not losing your mind. You are not simply getting old and difficult. What you are experiencing may be one of the most important signals your body will ever send you. And today, we are going to talk about what that signal actually means, and more importantly, what you can do about it, starting today. Welcome back, my friend. I'm so glad you're here with me. Whether this is your first time joining us, or you've been walking this journey of health and longevity with me for a while now, I want you to settle in, because what I'm about to share with you comes from some of the most respected research institutions in the world, including groundbreaking work out of Johns Hopkins University, and findings from the famous Blue Zones research on the world's longest living people. This isn't fear-mongering. This isn't a headline designed to scare you. This is information that could quite literally change the way you protect your mind for the next 10, 20, even 30 years. So stay with me until the very end, because the last part of this video is where everything comes together, and it's where I'll share the one simple step that researchers say may help protect your brain, your independence, and your closest relationships, starting this week. Let's start with something most people don't realize. For decades, we treated hearing loss as a small, almost cosmetic inconvenience of getting older. Turn up the television. Ask people to repeat themselves. Buy a hearing aid if it gets bad enough. That was the extent of the conversation. But researchers at Johns Hopkins, led by a physician named Dr. Frank Lin, spent over a decade studying something much deeper. They wanted to understand why hearing loss kept showing up, again and again, in people who later developed cognitive decline. And what they found reshaped the way modern medicine now looks at healthy aging. According to a major report from the Lancet Commission, one of the most respected medical bodies in the world, hearing loss was identified as one of the largest modifiable risk factors associated with dementia in later life. Modifiable. I want you to really sit with that word for a moment, because it is the most hopeful word in this entire video. It doesn't mean hearing loss causes dementia in every person. It doesn't mean if you struggle to hear in restaurants, your fate is sealed. What it means is that this is one of the few risk factors we actually have some power over. And that changes everything about how we should be thinking about that ringing in your ears, or that frustrating moment when your spouse's voice gets lost in the background noise of the kitchen. So why would something as simple as difficulty hearing be connected to something as serious as brain health? Researchers have pointed to a few possible explanations, and I think once you hear them, that struggle to follow conversations in noisy rooms will start to make a lot more sense. The first explanation involves something scientists call cognitive load. Here's what that means in plain everyday language. When your hearing starts to decline, especially in busy or noisy environments, your brain doesn't just quietly accept a quieter world. It fights. It works overtime, straining to piece together garbled, incomplete sound into something meaningful. Every single word your granddaughter says has to be reconstructed by your brain like a puzzle with missing pieces. And that reconstruction work takes enormous mental energy. Energy that would otherwise go toward memory, focus, and processing the world around you. Over months and years, that constant strain may divert precious cognitive resources away from the very functions we rely on to stay sharp. The second explanation is something researchers describe as changes in brain structure itself. When certain areas of the brain responsible for processing sound receive less input over time, some studies suggest those regions may begin to shrink or lose function from lack of use, similar to how a muscle can weaken when it isn't engaged. Your brain, remarkable as it is, adapts to what it receives. And if it's receiving less rich, clear sound year after year, some of that auditory processing territory may quietly begin to change. But the third pathway, in my opinion, is the one that touches the heart the most. It's social isolation. Think about what actually happens when hearing becomes difficult. You stop volunteering to answer the phone. You decline the invitation to the noisy family dinner. You sit a little further back at church, so you don't have to admit you can't hear the sermon. Slowly, almost invisibly, the world gets quieter. Not because you chose it, but because straining to hear became exhausting and sometimes embarrassing. And we have known for a very long time, through decades of research on aging and the brain, that social isolation and loneliness are themselves powerfully connected to cognitive decline. This is actually where the story connects to something I find deeply moving, and that's the research on the blue zones, the 5 regions of the world where people live measurably longer, healthier lives than almost anywhere else on Earth. Researchers studying places like Okinawa in Japan and Ikaria in Greece found that one of the strongest predictors of a long, sharp, vibrant life wasn't diet alone, and it wasn't genetics alone. Genetics, in fact, account for only about 20% of how long we live. The other 80% comes down to lifestyle and environment. And one of the most powerful environmental factors researchers identified again and again was social connection. In Okinawa, elders form what are called moais, small circles of 5 friends who commit to supporting one another for life, meeting regularly, sharing meals, sharing burdens, sharing joy. Research out of these longevity zones has even found that people who attend some kind of faith-based or community gathering multiple times a month tend to show meaningfully longer life expectancy than those who remain isolated. Connection, real, consistent, face-to-face connection, appears to be one of the true secrets hiding in plain sight behind the world's longest lives. Now think about what hearing loss quietly does to that exact equation. It doesn't just change what you hear. For many people, it slowly, gently pulls them out of the moai, out of the dinner table conversation, out of the church pew where they used to sing loudly and joyfully. And that emotional distance, that quiet withdrawal from connection, may be doing just as much damage to long-term brain health as the biology of hearing loss itself. Now, I know some of you watching this might be feeling a wave of worry right now. Maybe you've noticed you ask people to repeat themselves more than you used to. Maybe your family has gently mentioned that the television seems louder than it used to be. I want to pause here and speak directly to you, because what I'm about to say matters more than anything else in this video. This is not a life sentence. This is an invitation. The Johns Hopkins team didn't stop at simply identifying the risk. They wanted to know something far more important. If hearing loss is treated, does that change the outcome? So they conducted a landmark clinical study called the ACHIEVE study, following nearly 1,000 older adults between the ages of 70 and 84 over several years. Half received hearing aids and proper hearing support. The other half received general health education without hearing intervention. And what they discovered gave the entire medical community a genuine reason for hope. In participants who were already considered at higher risk for cognitive decline, those who received hearing support experienced a significantly slower rate of cognitive change compared to those who did not, with some analyses showing the decline was reduced by nearly half over the study period. Let that sink in for a moment. A relatively simple, accessible intervention, something as unglamorous as properly fitted hearing support, appeared to meaningfully protect the sharpness of the mind in people already walking a more vulnerable path. This is why Dr. Lin and his colleagues now describe hearing health as one of the most underestimated tools we have in supporting long-term brain health, right alongside the pillars we already know matter, like blood pressure management, physical activity, and staying socially engaged. If you're finding value in understanding your body this way, in learning the real science behind the changes so many of us experience but rarely talk about, I want to gently invite you to become part of our community here. When you subscribe and turn on notifications, you're not just supporting this channel, you're making sure you never miss the moments when we uncover the next piece of the puzzle that could help protect your independence, your memory, and the years you have ahead with the people you love. Think of it as building your own personal library of trustworthy health guidance, one video at a time, so that you always have somewhere to turn when new questions arise about your health and the health of the people you care for. Now let's talk about what you can actually do starting this week, because knowledge without action doesn't protect anyone. The first step is simply this: stop normalizing the struggle. So many of us, especially in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, have been raised to believe that pushing through discomfort is a virtue. We've spent decades telling ourselves it's fine, we'll just ask again, we'll just sit closer, we'll just turn up the volume a little more. but your hearing is not something to quietly tolerate declining. If you have noticed changes, especially difficulty following conversations in restaurants, family gatherings, or rooms with background noise, that is worth a real conversation with a hearing specialist or audiologist. Not because something is wrong with you, but because your brain deserves the clearest signal it can get. The second step is understanding that a hearing evaluation is not an admission of decline. It is an act of self-respect. Research has found that many people wait an average of 7 to 10 years after first noticing hearing difficulty before seeking help. 10 years is a long time for your brain to be working overtime, reconstructing broken sound into meaning, and 10 years is a long time to be quietly stepping back from the moments that matter. Getting evaluated early may allow you to address the issue while your brain is still building strong pathways, rather than waiting until those pathways have had years to adjust to silence. The third step is protecting your social world fiercely, regardless of where you are in your hearing journey. Remember what we learned from the Blue Zones. Connection isn't a luxury for the long-lived. It's one of the central pillars of their entire way of life. If loud restaurants are difficult, suggest quieter venues to your family instead of declining the outing altogether. If group conversations are exhausting, let the people who love you know so they can include you more thoughtfully, rather than assuming you simply don't want to participate. Consider building your own version of a moai, a small, consistent circle of friends or family you see regularly, in settings where you can actually hear and engage. Connection is medicine, and please don't let a treatable physical change quietly steal your seat at the table. And the fourth step, one that so many people overlook, is simply protecting the hearing you have left. Loud environments, unprotected exposure to noise, even from something as ordinary as mowing the lawn or attending a loud event, can accelerate hearing damage over time. Simple, inexpensive ear protection in loud settings is one of the easiest, most overlooked habits in long-term hearing preservation. I want you to imagine something with me for a moment. Imagine yourself 5 years from now, sitting at another family celebration. The room is loud, full of overlapping laughter and conversation just like before. But this time, you're not straining. You're not nodding along, hoping no one notices you missed the joke. You're right there, in the middle of it, hearing every word, connected, present, sharp, and fully part of the moment. That version of you is not out of reach. Research is increasingly showing us that the small, unglamorous decisions we make about our hearing today, and the effort we put into staying connected to the people we love, may directly shape whether that future is possible. I created this channel because I believe every single person watching deserves to age, not with fear, but with knowledge and dignity. You have already lived through more than most people can imagine. You've raised families, built careers, weathered storms most of us will never fully understand. You deserve real, honest, science-backed guidance, not vague reassurances and not frightening exaggerations, just the truth, delivered with the respect and compassion you deserve. So if today's video gave you even one piece of insight, one reason to finally book that hearing evaluation you've been putting off, or one reason to speak more openly with your family about what you've been experiencing, then this time we spent together was worth it. Before you go, I want to leave you with this. Your story is not finished. The years ahead of you are not simply years to endure. They are years meant to be lived fully, heard fully, and shared fully with the people who love you. Take care of that beautiful mind of yours. Protect it, nurture it, and never be afraid to ask for help when something doesn't feel quite right. Until next time, I'm wishing you a long, healthy, and deeply connected life. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.